a recommendation system is a software system that recommends items to a user based on their previous behavior or preference. If you are a user of a movie or music streaming service, then it's very likely that you have already been a user of a recommendation system. A good example is Netflix, which allows users to stream movies over the internet. If you are already a regular user of Netflix, you might sit down one evening wondering which movie to watch. As you have already watched movies on Netflix before, the system would come up with suggestions on which movies you might like. You will now learn how this works. In a movie recommendation system, movies are recommended to a user based on their previous watch history and/or rating of movies. Essentially, what a recommendation system does is to predict which items a user might like or prefer of the set of all possible items. To describe the task of a recommendation system, the best way is to consider a rating matrix. A rating matrix R allows to store for each user item pair the preference of the user for this item. If you have m users and n items, then it's simply an m by n matrix where you record the preference of user I for item j at entry rij. The goal is to score each entry of the matrix, which means each user item pair gets a score. The main problem is that the rating matrix is usually sparsely populated. Think of Netflix. A user has usually only watched or rated a small fraction of all movies that are available on Netflix. Our recommendation system will take the knowledge about the user preferences for these movies into account. There are two different ways of establishing such a system. Collaborative filtering systems take the user preferences together with the preferences of similar users into account. For example, if there is a user V that has rated movies in a similar way as the user U to whom you want to make a new recommendation, you would recommend a movie liked by user V but hasn't been watched by user U. When designing your collaborative filtering system, you then have to think about how to find similar users whose ratings could be useful to make a recommendation to the user of your system. Content-based recommendation systems are based on the content a user has preferred so far. Let's say a user predominantly likes comedy movies. The recommendation system would then mainly recommend comedy movies that the user hasn't watched so far. In addition to this, the recommendation system would take other information such as the involved actors into account. To achieve a high-performing recommendation system, the characteristics of collaborative filtering and content-based systems are usually combined into a hybrid system. In this way, it is possible to have closeness of content and closeness of user impacted on the recommendation made by the system. Next, you will learn more about the challenges when designing recommendation systems by considering some examples. In the next videos, I will discuss content-based and collaborative filtering systems.